Okay, as you can maybe tell by the title of this video, I'm going to be talking a little bit about character and identity. But before I go on, I'd like to start with this nursery rhyme right here.
Fuzzy Wuzzy was a bear. Fuzzy Wuzzy had no hair. Fuzzy Wuzzy wasn't fuzzy, was he?
Wuzzy Fuzzy.
So, Fuzzy Wuzzy was a bear. Fuzzy Wuzzy had no hair. Fuzzy Wuzzy wasn't fuzzy, was he? Now, I know what you're thinking. Why would I start this video about character identity with this obscure, weird nursery rhyme from the 1960s? Well, I think that this video is perfect, as our main character is having an identity crisis and is wondering, is he fuzzy or not? And I think that using character identity, we kind of explore this identity and come to a conclusion as to whether he's fuzzy or not. So let's get started. But wait a minute, who really is Fuzzy Wuzzy? Are we talking about Bigfoot, the bear-like creature in American folklore that is also referred to as Fuzzy Wuzzy? Or are we referring to the iconic bear-shaped hair-growing soap? Yeah, you heard me right. Fuzzy Wuzzy the bear was one of three different characters of soap produced in the 1960s by the Aerosol Corporation of America. When the unassuming bar of soap was placed in the water, artificial fur grew out of it. Here, let me show you.
Ladies and gentlemen, in the center ring we proudly present an exciting and unusual collection of wild animals. Each and every one of them bald, monkeys, tigers, bears, all with no fur.
Wait, let's look again. Fuzzy Wuzzy was a bear. Fuzzy Wuzzy had no hair. But watch this. Take him from his cage, set him on a circus platform, and within 3 days, Fuzzy Wuzzy will grow his own fur. And then, use Fuzzy Wuzzy to wash, because Fuzzy Wuzzy is made of wonderful mild soap. And the cleaner you get, the quicker you'll find the toy surprise that's inside of each Fuzzy Wuzzy.
So look for Fuzzy Wuzzy circus animals in their cages. Fuzzy Wuzzy bath soap. It grows its own fur.
Yeah, that's crazy. But ultimately, to me, the Fuzzy Wuzzy we are referring to is a completely different identity. And we shall just imagine him as a bear. But the next question that comes up is, how do we imagine him? Well, this answer is not so simple, but fortunately, I have this new state-of-the-art cutting-edge diagram that I could use to help explain. You see, neuroscience shows that viewing specific objects involves a network of brain activity spanning from the frontal cortex to the visual processing areas at the back of this brain. We can think of this activity as a sort of pathway. We can think of this sort of activity as a sort of pathway in the brain. Current research proposes that when you imagine an object, we try to reactivate the same pattern of activity in our brain as when you originally viewed that same object. Basically, when we attempt to imagine something, we are subconsciously walking down a pathway that was created when we originally viewed the object, and we end up imagining something quite similar. And the more we walk down this pathway, the stronger it becomes. So let's try to imagine Fuzzy Wuzzy together. When I imagine Fuzzy Wuzzy, I picture a bear quite like Baloo from the movie The Jungle Book, probably because that movie was a childhood favorite of mine. Perhaps when you imagine Fuzzy Wuzzy, an image like Paddington or even Winnie the Pooh may come to mind. Or you may even imagine a real-life bear, but even that has many variations. See, think of all the species of bears and the stark contrast between a cute panda and a fierce grizzly. Each of us is bound to imagine a different variation of bear when we attempt to imagine Fuzzy Wuzzy. You see, our imaginations are subjective. It really just depends on how the networks in our brains are wired, and we are all going to perceive him differently. So, essentially, your Fuzzy is not my Wuzzy. Ultimately, I do not think that we can determine whether Fuzzy Wuzzy was fuzzy or not. Shakespeare, right here, explores the idea of self-identity in the play King Lear and writes, "Who is it who can tell me who I am?" And likewise, who are we to determine or even assume if Fuzzy Wuzzy is fuzzy or not? We do not know who Fuzzy Wuzzy is. He is a fictional character that we must imagine. And as our imaginations are subjective, there is no way to have everybody imagine the same being. And we do not even know what kind of fuzzy we are looking for. Are we talking about being physically fuzzy or the essence of having a warm, compassionate, fuzzy personality? We simply cannot come to a uniform judgment, and it is not right for us to determine someone else's identity. But what about character? When we refer to an excellence of character, the emphasis is not in distinctiveness or individuality, but the combinations of qualities that make the individual the sort of ethically admirable person she is. And the character of Fuzzy Wuzzy is arguably more significant than his identity. You see, I see character as a universal metric of the quality of the person behind the mask, the strings that pull the marionette, the man behind the curtain. Character is a guiding force that makes us act and helps us make our moral decisions. You see, to me, character is greater and is more telling than greater than and more telling than our achievements, capabilities, and even our identity. Character is our foundation. Nearly 6 decades ago, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. gave his momentous speech on the footsteps of the Lincoln Memorial, boldly stating that one second. He boldly stated that
I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day.
his words and legacy are everlasting, but I advocate for a slight modification of these words. You see, very often we see people being judged and attacked on a variety of differences, including race, religion, ethnicity, gender, identity, political ideologies, and so much more. You see, all these are components of one's identity. And it is my opinion that we must all learn to celebrate these differences in our identities and not let them divide us. You see, we must no longer judge people based on their identity, but by the content of their character. So Fuzzy Wuzzy wasn't fuzzy, was he?